When I got here this evening, I realised I'd completely missed the point of Keynote, which is that it's got notes. So you're going to mainly hear rustling and swearing from me, I think. I am here to talk about the recent ad I made for E.On and Gorillaz, but I thought I'd start with a little bit of an intro about me and how I like to work. I am a graphic designer who kind of accidentally became a director, and I guess I kind of sort of sit in the middle of there somehow. And I really like working with physical objects. And I know that's a ridiculous thing to say because you can't have a non-physical object. But what I mean is tangible things that I can put in front of the camera and manipulate and move in the way that I want to, like this. So these are real, they're not CG, they're not 2D, they're real objects. So I thought I could probably explain a bit more about me just through one kind of object. So this is that object. And this object sums me up pretty well. So I made this for Donald Trump. He keeps it in his downstairs bathroom at Mar-a-Lago. And I would say that it pretty much satisfies all his needs. Now, I like to kind of blur the boundaries between analog and digital. I'm not a Luddite, even though I don't know how to use Keynote. In fact, I am a Luddite. Now, this is obviously a very physical thing, but the process you go through with this is quite digital. So animate it in 3D. 3D print it. Now, I didn't have a photo of me 3D printing it, so I just nicked something off the internet. I've got no idea if that's a 3D printer. Could be like an incinerator from a morgue. However, it is called So Dick, so I had to put it in my presentation because I'm massively puerile. And then spray it gold, which has kind of become a defining feature of my career, which is why me and Trump get on so well. And sometimes a little bit of pink as well. And then, just to kind of finish explaining about me, you then take it and you put it inside a woman's head around a demented rave baby and animate it. So that's me, and that's what I do. So E.On, I'll show you the film first, and then I'll explain a bit of the process behind it and what it's all about.
We got the power to be loving each other no matter what happens. We got the power to do that. We got the power to do that.
And we dream of home, I dream of life out of here. The dreams are small, my dreams don't know fear. I got my heart full of hope, I will change everything. No matter what I'm told, how impossible it seems. We did it before and we'll do it again. We're indestructible, even when we're tired. And we've been here before, just you and I. Don't try to rescue me, I don't need to be rescued.
We got the power to be loving each other no matter what happens. We got the power to do that.
Well, now let's move on to Sydney. Okay.
We got the power to be ringing the great bell out there above us. We got the
So there you go. So that's an advert for E.On. I make adverts, apologise for that. But it's quite a unique advert, I think, in that it's one that you actually quite enjoy watching. Now, the idea behind that was essentially this, pretty straightforward. Burning Man for toys, powered by the sun. And that's how, what I put in my treatment, my pitch to the agency, that's how I wanted to make the film. But in my head, I kind of put these things together that it's a little bit more difficult to put into words, I suppose, but I think you'll get what I mean.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
パチパチクラピー行ってみましょうタイム
So that was a film to me. Mad Max, crazy Japanese shit, and rave. Now that last clip represents a very important and inspirational time in my life, really, and I think that it feeds into a lot of the work that I do. I was 17 in 1991, so I kind of left college and I just went raving in fields for a couple of years and took way too many pills. And probably stood around in fields could you hear him talking about bongs? Talking about bongs in fields, right? He's like the real super hands. Fucking brilliant. Anyway, so there's your advice, right? If you want a successful career in advertising, talk about bongs in a field. So I'm just going to talk you quickly through a little bit of the process of this. So one of the things I wanted to say was that these jobs have a crazy short time frame sometimes, and you always question why they have a crazy short time frame. Why don't these massive companies, these agencies, kind of know that they've got ads coming up and give you fucking months to do it? But they don't. So this whole next bit of the process is about 3 weeks from pitching the job to going and shooting it. And everything's happening concurrently, so there's a lot going on. So one of the obvious things, I suppose, is storyboards, right? Now, I've only put a couple of frames in here, but I think what's really important about a storyboard, and actually a very difficult thing to do, is to try and encapsulate the feeling of that shot or the feeling of that character or something. And I think this does that pretty well. This guy is shaking his ass, and he's pretty fucking happy about it, right? This is when the Gorillaz arrive and everyone stops and it's kind of like the seas part. It's like the saloon door moment, you know? And I really get that from that frame, you know? If you've got a really good storyboard artist, I didn't draw these, I cannot draw. If you've got a really good storyboard artist, then the film's really gonna start taking shape on paper, you know? Obviously, alongside that, there's a lot of design to go on in a job like this. So my production designer, Drogo Michi, we'll put something together. We'll talk a lot, and he'll put something together in SketchUp. So a lot of the stuff we talked about and looked at was obviously Burning Man, where it's all laid out to look a certain way from the sky, but also kind of a lot of that hippie crap, like stone circles and Glastonbury Abbey and all that stuff, and how it's all kind of laid out in this very, I don't know, it's quite religious, isn't it, you know, in the way that it's kind of all going towards the central point. So we'll start with something like this, which is kind of very soulless, but very kind of structural. And then I'll put knock something together in Photoshop and go back to him and go, well, how about if we put a massive fan of Kino lights behind him and make some octopuses out of balloons and put a big halo over his head and make it a bit Japanese. And then we'll start kind of factoring that into the process. And then we start to get somewhere a bit more like the final thing. So we've got this giant lucky cat, we've got the octopuses on either side. These are solar panels all around it. There's the solar batteries in there. Which is what the ad's for, if anyone got that. Solar batteries that store solar energy. And then there's loads of toys in the middle. And also along this whole process is trying to work out what the fuck those toys are and where they're going to come from, because you've only got 3 weeks. So then you've got to build stuff, right? So you build a massive lucky cat out of fiberglass, and then you clearly spray it gold, because that's what I do with everything. There's obviously a lot of other stuff in here. You've got to build all the platforms in the set. You've got to build the fish tanks. You've got to build the speakers that the fish tanks sit on. There's so much stuff in, but I just thought I'd put the cat in there as a kind of simple idea of the build. And then you've got to work out where you're going to shoot it. So obviously the ideal would be to go and shoot it in Nevada in the desert, right? but you can't afford that. So then you kind of go to spaghetti westerns and you think, Andalusia? And then you look at the logistics of getting 1,000 toys and massive crew and everyone out to Andalusia into the desert and where they're going to stay and how it's all going to work. And so you end up in a limestone quarry outside Barcelona, which, you know, sounds shit, but was actually great. It's absolutely massive. So that there is our film set. That's like a massive truck. There's kind of vans. It's huge, you know, and it's got these amazing big kind of strata and levels and layers, and they kind of suggest canyons. And, you know, you put the camera in the right place, and, you know, you've got a desert. You've got Nevada. It was a working quarry, though. There's a lot of this shit going on, which is pretty scary. Obviously not in the middle of our set. That truck is massive. Quite a weird place to hang out for 3 nights, all night, is what we were shooting for. A weird place. Anyway, animatic. So then, storyboard, build, all that stuff. And then, with a job like this, and jobs that involve a lot of animation or something, then I'll build the whole film in 3D. So that, well, with a job like this, it's very ambitious. They wanted something that was 2.5 minutes long. I was like, fuck, how are we going to make a film that's 2.5 minutes long? We've only got 3 nights to shoot. So I'll put something together like this. And I've just got a little bit of it here. I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but you'll see how it kind of ties into what the actual...
I dream of home, I dream of life out of here. The dreams are small, my dreams don't know fear. I got my heart full of hope, I will change everything. No matter what I'm told, how impossible it seems. We did it before and we'll do it again. We're indestructible, even when we're tired. And we've been here before, just you and I. Don't try to rescue me, I don't need to be rescued.
So that helps me, my editor, my DOP, my art director. It helps everyone kind of get the idea of what's going on in my head, which quite often is not the easiest thing to kind of get. But it also helps the client. So the client, when they see that and they sit down and they go, fuck, that's what our film's going to look like, and they're really happy. Obviously, then you go and shoot and everything goes tits up and things don't work and toys break and you can't get the shots you want and it's really windy and the smoke won't stay and all that kind of shit. And it changes from that, but it gets everyone in a kind of a place of feeling comfortable of where you're going to go when they're spending however much money they're spending. So obviously, when you're making a film, cast is a big thing. Now, in this film, the cast is toys, right? So we had to find all these toys, and we were going to China, we were going to Japan, we were going to Vietnam, we were going to Taiwan, all these places where we get all these toys in bulk because we needed lots of them. And there was a visual style I wanted to achieve. I wanted to achieve a sort of slightly Japanese weird feel, but I also wanted toys that people hadn't necessarily seen before. I didn't want obvious toys. I didn't want obvious brands that were going to sue us when the film came out. But I also wanted to create characters, right? Well, if you've been to raves or parties or whatever, there's always certain characters, right? And those guys are going to be like the mosh pit around the Gorillaz, right? So they were like just off their tits, really going for it. And then I really wanted this kind of graceful old couple waltzing through the middle of them, right? You know, you ever been to a party and there's always some old guy there and he's kind of cool, just hanging out doing his thing. And you've got no fucking idea why he's there. And he's probably got no idea why he's there. But that's what I wanted these to be. And this was like the hardest thing to find. This is why I put the eBay page on here, because my art director was trying everywhere to find the perfect. I had this reference that I really wanted, and I couldn't find it. And eventually we found this. We found this. We built a little turntable for it with a motor so it could be run off the solar energy. And then they waltzed through the middle of the other guys. Now this guy, there's always a guy like this at a party, right? And it was probably me. So with this we rewired a lot of these toys to MIDI sync them up. So MIDI is where you send an audio signal to fire off a sample if you're making music or something like that. But you can also use it just to send an electrical signal to anything. So with these guys, you can wire them up so they run in sequence. Eventually. But then, you know, you do loads of tests with this, and you test 6 of them, and then you get on set, and you previs this massive Busby Berkeley dance routine with 25 of them. It doesn't fucking work. Doesn't make the film, cut it. Straight out the edit. Really annoying, but there you go. And then obviously I'd spray some of them gold, you know, just to keep that up, and some other colours as well. And now obviously the film is a big time with Gorillaz, and I wanted to feature the Gorillaz, you know, invading the film in the middle and then becoming the kind of centre of the party, right? So again, eBay, we bought these kid robot toys off eBay. No one gives you anything, you know, you have to buy it. Ridiculously expensive collectible kid robot toys, which we then proceeded to hack apart and doctor and put motors in them. And I wanted to turn Murdoch into Clint Eastwood specifically at The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, and I cannot give you a reason why, other than that it was in the desert and I wanted him to kind of arrive like a sort of saloon door, kind of cowboy style, put a gunshot in there later on. It was not a big kind of planned thing. So we 3D printed him a hat, which I then got them to put the bullet nick in at the top, like that, like a real geek. So we gave him a hat. And now this image is quite interesting because the client said that E.On have a strict no tits and no pants policy. Now this guy's obviously got tits and pants, right? I don't think they used the word tits. I think it was bare breasts and underwear. No bare breasts and underwear, so we had to put him in a poncho. Anyway, which I thought was quite funny because he's a toy. So then mechanisms, all these toys have got mechanisms. So this is the very crude first go at how Murdoch's legs were going to work. I wanted him to be doing this sort of weird Irish jig kind of thing, right? Top half of him stayed totally static, bottom half Irish jig. And this is how he ended up.
That was it.
Russell Hobbs, this is before the motor went on, so we cut his arm off, moved his drums so he could be playing the drums. We did that to all of those, and they were running, just running off solar energy like everything else. So I've got a few behind the scenes stuff here, which I'll just kind of rattle through because it's quite interesting, but it's not that interesting. Obviously, we had thousands of toys that turn up in this quarry, and someone's got to kind of sort through it all and make sure it all kind of works and put some of them together, which was a surprise to everyone when they turned up in a box. These guys were really pissed off after, like, there were 40 of these toys that they had to put together. Made me chuckle. This guy's wiring up this beautiful little princess so we can run her in sequence with a load of other ones. This is guys from Asylum, who are a special effects company who did quite a lot of work with us on this, like making the Gorillaz toys, animate, and rewiring all the toys for us. A load of Hamley's squid. Can't beat a Hamley's squid, can you? We had problems with these though, right, which I didn't foresee, which is that a bath has round corners, right? So a squid kind of goes around it, whereas a fish tank has square corners, so they just collapse into the corner. So you have to then tie them with thread to the top of the tank and put them in, and then they all get tangled up, so you've got about 3 seconds of shot that you can get out of it. It's a learning curve, you know? So this is just building the structure in the quarry, and although this photo might look pretty dull to you, there's something really nice about the juxtaposition of that cat and that rock behind it, and that beautiful van in the foreground as well, obviously. This is my art director, Kate, starting to lay toys out. And what we had to do, you know, we'd never put any of this stuff together till we got out there, so we had to get all these toys, and we had an idea of what we wanted to go where, but we had to start laying them all out and go, no, that doesn't work, this works, and you know, before it got dark when we needed to start shooting. There's me telling people what to do. That's what you do as a director. Just point and shout. So this is a really cool rig. This is where Asylum special effects company come into their own. So these little guys, these little clappy handy guys, they're just hand triggered, right? You just squeeze them. They're not powered at all. But I loved them, and I put them on the front page of my pitch to the agency, to the client. And I was absolutely adamant I wanted them in the film. Couldn't find them anywhere. And then weirdly, some bloke in like Grimsby or something had a lockup with like 40 in his lockup. I don't know, A, how we found them, or B, why he had them. But anyway, we got them all. And then Asylum built this rig so that there's a motor running underneath, and it will make them all clap at the same time. So I could get this beautiful sync running out of these guys, which is, to me, is kind of an integral part of the rhythm of the film, you know? This is a motion-controlled camera rig. There's a time-lapse shot in the film. I don't know if you remember where the sun goes down. And that's real, it's not post. We shot that over 8 hours, so this rig moves the camera in how I want it to move. It goes down the track, it pans and it tilts up, going past all the batteries as the sun goes down. Obviously it was cloudy the first day when we set it up, so we shot it and it was unusable, so we had to set it up again and do it again the second day at great expense. But it's really nice doing that stuff in camera, you know. There's a real physical kind of feel to the shadows and how they move and all the light. It would be very difficult to create that in post. And there's just proof of my obsession with arses, as you've seen from the rest of this presentation. That's me looking at the first AD's arse through lens. Oh, not really. Thought I'd get a better laugh, so move on. I'll move on. That's setting up that big first drone shot at the start, and you get a really nice sense. You don't believe that's a quarry, do you? It feels really canyony, you know? It's a great place. This really makes me chuckle, right? And I thought this would make you laugh as well, but it probably won't, because my last joke didn't go down very well. How many fucking people are there standing in this photo, right? And look what we're shooting. We're shooting that. Now, I'm the director, right? And I could not tell you what 70% of those people are doing there. But then look at this. That's the same shot and the same people at night. Brilliant, huh? There's an amazing amount of people involved in these shoots. That's just a kind of cool Blade Runner-y shot of the set. This is the guy with the MIDI sync. In fact, this is probably the moment where he was running all those cars that didn't work, the Busby Berkeley thing, which was broken. Oh, sorry, I'm overrunning, being told. I'll move on. Another cool set. Now, this is a shot that I took because it kind of encapsulated the entire raviness of the event. This is just a really cool shot when the sun comes up. And there was a kind of bit of a sort of early morning rave feeling to the end of the thing anyway, you know. It was kind of, everyone was a bit kind of bowled over by it. So, just to encapsulate the end of it, you know, not wishing to belittle any of these processes, but they're a little bit less exciting to show. Edit, post-production, sound design and mix, client happy, go to the pub, go to sleep. And then I've got one more thing that I wanted to show you. So this is a short film that we just finished, a Blink. It's a co-direction I did with a guy called Andy Biddle. And the reason I thought it tied in here was that I used this as part of my pitch to win the E.On job. Personal work really feeds into kind of commercial work in a really important way. And it's incredibly encapsulates what I was saying about physical objects before. Every single thing in here is found in a car boot cell. Every single object. So here you go.